we have, in a way, to allow them to strike deeper into Russia to try to disrupt their lines of communication, build up of any combat power that they've got, moving up from inside Russia and so on. So in a way, I don't want to be unfair about this because I don't know the whole story, but in a way, one could argue this is a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to how things have developed in Ukraine over the last few days or weeks.
Western policy appeared to shift today as Lord Cameron of Chipping Norton, the Foreign Secretary, said Ukraine has the right to fire missiles supplied by the UK into Russia. The Kremlin has accused Britain of a direct escalation of the war. Dmitry Peskov, the Kremlin spokesman, described Lord Cameron's remarks as a concerning development, said there was a very dangerous trend of Western countries edging towards direct conflict with Russia. So I've been speaking about this with Major General Tim Cross. I asked him if he thought how far this was a shift in Britain's policy toward Ukraine.
I think it is a change, and I'm not sure whether we're doing this in conjunction with the US and the other NATO allies or not. I sense what's happening is that people are getting really quite worried about the situation in Ukraine. And in a way, we can share some of the, blame might not be the right word, but because we've been very reluctant and very reticent about giving Ukraine sufficient combat power in time in order for them to achieve, for example, the counteroffensive last year, or indeed to defend themselves over the last few months, few weeks of this year, not just because America prevaricated over the budget allocation, but in other ways too. And we've taken the line thus far that we collectively didn't want Ukraine to attack too deeply into Russia. And now clearly, it would seem anyway, that is changed. Now, why would that be the case? Well, I think because we recognize, the UK, NATO recognizes that Ukraine is on the back foot at the moment. And we have, in a way, to allow them to strike deeper into Russia to try to disrupt their lines of communication, build up of any combat power that they've got, moving up from inside Russia and so on. So in a way, I don't want to be unfair about this because I don't know the whole story, but in a way, one could argue this is a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to how things have developed in Ukraine over the last few days or weeks.
What signals do you think we should look for from the French, who've sent the Ukrainian Scalp missiles, which could penetrate deeply into Russia, and the US with the ATA-CMS weapons as well, to work out whether or not our British position is aligned with theirs?
Well, I think we'd have to wait to see whether there's any public announcement. We know President Macron has gone from, in a way, one end of the spectrum to the other, and is far more bullish now than he was previously in Ukraine. I mean, I think at the end of the day, my own view is that Ukraine is fighting for its survival here. It's a major conflict with Russia. Russia have been firing deep inside Ukraine, and there's never been any reason in my mind why Ukraine should not be allowed to retaliate deeply into Russia. Now, there have been reasons why people have refrained from that, political reasons and concerns in terms of how Russia may or may not respond. But I just think the time has come where Ukraine has got to be given a free hand to be able to retaliate and take the fight to the Russians in any way that they can.
Yeah. Interesting to get the response from Chancellor Scholz of Germany, who says it would be irresponsible to send Taurus weapons to Kiev. They've got a range of over 310 miles. And we've heard today that the Kremlin's Dmitry Peskov says David Cameron's words represent a very dangerous trend and a direct escalation of tension that could pose a danger to European security. Now, he said this kind of thing before. How seriously should Britain and the Americans and others take his warnings now?
Well, he has said it before, and Putin and many others have commented on this. And in one sense, why wouldn't they make these comments? You know, it's been fairly relatively easy for Russia because they have invaded Ukraine. They have taken the fight into Ukraine, deeply into Ukraine, and the Ukrainians have been very limited in their ability to respond. They have done some things, as in attacking the Russian fleet in the Black Sea, and also attacking Crimea. But Russia has been in a relatively safe position over this. So they won't be best pleased if Ukraine does have the ability to strike deeply into Russia. and disrupt those lines of communication and be able to engage in a much deeper battle than they have been able to achieve so far. So my own view is, frankly, I'm not surprised the Russians would say this, but I wouldn't take it, well, I wouldn't say I'd dismiss it entirely, because they may be able to ramp up, in some sort of escalatory way, but that's something they're going to have to live with, and Ukraine, need to be able to do this. So Germany's reaction, I'm afraid, is a recognition of the way that Germany has reacted to this almost from the very beginning. They've been very reluctant to engage and positively support Ukraine initially. They've been drawn into it very reluctantly further down the line. And they are worried, and historically, understandably, maybe, they are worried about how Russia will react to this. But you cannot conduct a major conflict that Ukraine is going through by continually holding them back and stopping them from being able to take this fight to the Russians, in my view.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's inevitable that we got to where we are. The question is really, is this too late?
Well,
And I
this
think
is really
Ukraine is on
interesting
the back.
because, David Cameron, Lord Cameron, has promised £3 billion every year in military equipment for the Ukrainians for as long as it takes. And the Americans, the 60 billion that was locked in Congress is now on its way. But by the time it gets to Ukraine, will it be too late? How much more damage might Russia have done?
Indeed, indeed. And what does that equipment look like? The bottom line is, we and many others are running short of our own material stocks in order to support Ukraine. We were very late in setting up our production lines, our military production lines, as in defense companies and so forth, while the Russians moved to a war production line in terms of their procurement and so forth quite a long time ago. So if Ukraine can hold out for a number of weeks, if not months, into this year, it may well be that this does make a difference, that the supplies coming from America and elsewhere can continue to hold the line. But I mean, and I don't want to dismiss that. That is possible, but it is also possible that if Russia responds to this by ramping up their offensive operations, by attempting to increase their combat power quickly and engage, as they have been doing over these last few weeks, in a serious offensive, it's not beyond the bounds of possibility that Ukraine could stumble.
That was Major General Tim Cross, retired, talking to me earlier this evening. Now,